G'day guys, Solid here and welcome back to another episode of Adventure News where we talk the latest, the greatest and sometimes the hated adventure and dual sport stories. And CFMoto have just had spy shots released of their new MT800 adventure bike which has the KTM 790 engine. So a very interesting motorcycle. So let's dive into the picture to see what we can find and roll that intro. So CFMoto are saying that this bike is pretty much ready for production. It's just doing its final testing now and it should be on sale in 2021. So a little backstory if you're not familiar with CFMoto before we dive into the pictures. CFMoto are pretty well known recently for having an agreement with KTM to produce their engines for the KTM 790 and 890. And part of that agreement was KTM agreed to allow them to put that 790 engine in CFMoto's motorcycles. So that's what we've got with this MT800. It's got the heart of a KTM and the exterior of a Chinese motorcycle. Now, say what you will about that combination, it is a very interesting combination. Let's dive into the pictures and see what we can gather, and then I'll give my opinion after that. So my immediate opinion of the picture is it definitely looks the part. It's got all those funny sketches all over it to keep it hidden, but you can tell that it does keep in line aesthetically with the style of current adventure bikes. A lot of Chinese bikes in the past, in my opinion, have looked strangely or oddly different in ways that you just can't quite put your finger on compared to Japanese and European motorcycles. Whereas this one, at a glance, if you didn't know, you could be forgiven for thinking it comes from any manufacturer. It's quite a reasonable looking motorcycle. I wouldn't say it's a pretty bike, but it's fine. It's not egregiously disgusting. It's basically what I'm trying to say. The other thing that is immediately apparent to me is that this looks like a lot more of a road-based adventure bike compared to the KTM 790 Adventure R. And I think that's a very smart move. It'd be very hard to top the KTM 790 Adventure R's prowess off-road. It's what KTM does. So I think this is a great way to go to forge its own path in the adventure bike community. Not only because CFMoto don't really have a world-renowned reputation in hardcore off-road bikes, but I think it's a better proposition not only market-wise for them carving out a niche, but it also means there's less criticisms on their failings. If this is going to be a more road-based bike, they need less hard-edge, high-performance off-road materials on the bike, so that will save some costs as well. That might mean they're judged less harshly when they're not really trying to achieve that real high-end off-road motorcycle. So I think that's a smart move. We can also see here that this definitely looks like a touring version. It's got hard panniers, a bash plate, it's got the spotlights there, a nice tall windscreen and some handguards. So it definitely looks like it's set up quite well for doing some long distance touring, so that's good to see. I assume there'll be multiple variants of this. They'd be silly not to do a touring version and a standard version at least. It's very hard to tell whether that's a 21-inch or a 19-inch wheel. Maybe you eagle-eyed viewers can illuminate me down in the comment section below. Ground clearance looks reasonable. It doesn't look groundbreaking, but it looks like it's enough. Another interesting thing to me is the seat height. It actually looks like it's got quite a low seat height, so this might be a potential great big adventure bike for short riders. So that's interesting as well. So what do I think overall of this bike? I think it's a very interesting motorcycle for a number of reasons. We've got multiple layers of intrigue here. The first and most obvious is that we've got a great engine. That KTM engine is a corker and it's going into a motorcycle that has Chinese components. We've got the engine with a really good record of reliability and performance going into a frame that is not really renowned for its quality and its workmanship. So that's a very interesting juxtaposition there. We've also got the political climate at the moment. A lot of people are feeling very strongly about boycotting getting products from that region of the world at the moment. It's understandable. I don't want to get into all that too much, but I can see that as being a hurdle as well for the Chinese market. But then you've also got the macro level as well. That is the wide scope. And I think China is in a position that Japan was in the late 50s and 60s. Now, if you remember, people were very skeptical of Japanese motorcycles in that time period. They were the inferior product. We were also in a post-World War II economic climate, so people weren't too happy about getting Japanese products back then. So it's a very similar position to where China are poised now. But now Japan is a benchmark of reliability and quality. So I'm wondering if we're on the cusp of a new dominance in the motorcycle market, with these Chinese manufacturers slowly getting better and better at offering a product that us Westerners actually want to purchase. And I think this CFMoto is the closest product so far that I personally have seen. I will reserve my final decision for when I see this in the flesh, but so far it looks like it's quite a good proposition considering that it's got such a great engine in it. The success of this bike obviously will hang on, one, how good a quality components are bolted onto this bike, and two, the value proposition, that is how much it costs. If this bike is cheap enough and offers good enough value, I think there will be a lot of people rushing to this bike, because say what you will about the political tensions at the moment, a lot of people are fiercely rational, and if they can save money, they will. So I think there'll be two camps here, and it's a very interesting time. It'll be very interesting to see how this bike does. It's a bit of a weather vane, I think, for future products from that region. So let me know your thoughts down below. Would you be happy to snap up a budget KTM 790, aka the MT800, or are you just not going to touch anything from that region because of obvious reasons? Let me know in the comment section down below. So that wraps up this episode of Adventure News. Don't forget to smash that like button, and if you're new here, consider subscribing to this great growing off-road community. As always guys, don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.